Update. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my mother-in-law in the middle of the night? Original story. Some background. I, 32 male, and my wife, 25 female, have been together for 5 years and married for 3 and are expecting our son right now. We have our ups and downs when we first got together because I was fresh out of a horrible relationship and I was her first boyfriend. But I had always noticed that she was really demeaning about herself and she was always really disappointed in herself. And this was just 6 months into our relationship, and it hurt to see her like that since she's an amazing woman. I convinced her to go to therapy for her, and we would do couple therapy because I did really love her in a short amount of time. And during therapy, I learned that her parents were narcissists who only loved her brother, their golden child. And when she relayed the mistreatment she faced, I honestly cried. And that whole experience made us the strong couple we are today, and the strong woman she is today. Back to present. My mother-in-law and father-in-law have gotten a little better over the years, which is why we are at low contact from our no contact position. My mother-in-law came to visit us. They live overseas, since my wife is pregnant. And it has been only a week and my wife's mood is completely dimmed. This happened at night when we were sleeping. My wife went to get some juice since she was craving it while I went to the washroom, and came back to see glass on the floor and my mother-in-law shouting at my wife. I couldn't handle my anger and shouted at her to get out, and told her if she didn't, I was gonna call the police, so she begrudgingly got out of the house. I calmed my wife down, and she told me mother-in-law had gotten mad at her because she wanted to drink apple juice because it's bad for the baby, and how she doesn't deserve to have a baby if she wanted to kill it. I'm now getting calls from her family saying I'm an a-hole because I kicked her out, and I even got a call from my parents saying it was an a-hole move, and I could have let her stay the night. I understand I might be the a-hole because I kicked her out in the middle of the night, but at that moment, looking at my wife shaking, it was the best option. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Edit. For people asking me about what kind of apple juice my wife was drinking in the messages, she was drinking natural apple juice, which she makes herself from fresh apples, not the one from the market. And now for the top comments before reading the update. So much not the a-hole. Go back to no contact, unless you want this kind of behavior around your baby. I agree wholeheartedly. OP's in-laws have not proven capable of introspection, so at the very least, it's time for at least absolute minimal contact. Put them on an info diet. Be a grey rock. Establish firmer boundaries now. Not the a-hole. Your in-laws are toxic people. I'm proud of you for protecting your wife from their garbage. They don't deserve a place in your family's life. Thank you. For a second, I did really believe that they were getting better, not being toxic. But that was just a lie, I guess. The only way mother-in-law's behavior that night is only even 10% okay is if your wife was drinking an entire huge bottle of straight whiskey. Apple juice is perfectly fine for an expecting mother. Not the a-hole. It sounds like your mother-in-law really only came over to control your wife and what she does during her pregnancy. If she didn't want to get kicked out, she should have acted like, oh, I don't know, a respectable human being? Not the a-hole. Who says that to a pregnant woman? Over juice? She's lucky you didn't tell her to go screw herself. And now for the update. Thank you to everyone who responded to my post, and thank you to everyone who voted not the a-hole, because I was really conflicted for a few days after the incident. And I also agree that I could have controlled my anger better. A lot has happened since I posted. Me and my wife went to therapy, where she told me the reason she accepted her mother's request to come was because she saw how her mom treated her brother's kids. So she wanted that for our son too, and she really did believe that her mother had changed for the better. But as explained by our therapist, that some narcissists refuse to change. My wife and I have written one letter and sent it to every one of her family member who had told us we were in the wrong, which basically said that her mother never cared for her and never would, and we didn't want that around our children. Then my wife wrote about several instances where she was subjected to emotional abuse, and even though everyone knew, no one did anything except for her grandma, her father's mother. She said she's tired of always being the bigger person, but now she would be selfish for herself and our child. And if anyone disagrees, they're welcome to cut contact, as she wouldn't miss people like that in her life. Something which shocked both of us was when her father called and asked what happened, and she narrated everything. Her father, being the typical narcissist, tried to gaslight, but with my support and her therapy, she put her foot down and asked her father if he had ever cared about her, because it never felt like they did. She narrated every instance from her childhood to her adulthood where she was subjected to emotional abuse, and how her brother always came before her. Her dad was silent throughout the call. And in the end, all my wife said that for her currently, she doesn't have parents, and hung up. By the end, all my wife did was cry, and I cried with her. I also called my parents, asking how they could not take my side knowing the history because they really love my wife, which is why it was hard listening I'm in the wrong. And they told me that it was because her mother had called them in hysterics, and told I was physical with her. I was not. After learning the truth from me, they came over to apologize, and my mother held my wife. I am an only child, so I and my wife are everything to them. I would like to point out that we're in the metropolitan area, and there are plenty of hotels, so I wasn't worried about my mother-in-law finding a hotel. She's loaded. Money isn't an issue. For now, we are just waiting for the little one to be born, and my wife is much happier and free from her toxic family. Great to hear that things are resolving the way they likely should. I hope your parents never side against you like that again. They had no reason to believe mother-in-law's horrible account that their own son was an abuser. That part is the biggest betrayal for me out of all of this, as wife's parents are already known narcissists. Yeah, that concerned me how all it took was one hysterical call, and his parents instantly believed her despite knowing about her and her past. While that response definitely gets a side-eye, it's actually not that uncommon. A lot of people who don't have experience with toxic people have a really vague and inaccurate idea of what that behavior looks like. Even if they understand consciously mother-in-law's an a-hole and has been very horrible in the past, they don't really get how manipulative they can be, or how casually/easily they lie. So the parents receive a phone call in the middle of the night from a hysterical mother-in-law, claiming Opie got physical. Even though they've been warned, they instinctively believe it because they can't wrap their heads around someone who can turn hysterical crying on and off like a tap, or why someone would lie about something that extreme and easily disproved. Hopefully they're quick learners and appropriately apologetic, but it's worth remembering that people like the mother-in-law use those kinds of manipulative tactics because they're super effective at short-circuiting people's logical defenses and getting them on their side. This almost makes me glad I have the experience I do with narcs and their tactics, but I hate that anyone should have to deal with said narcs and tactics in the first place. Good on both of you for sticking to your guns and getting all this out in the open. Narcissists thrive in partial information. By sharing this with everyone in your extended family, it puts the mom in the spotlight where it will be a lot harder to get away with it. Congrats on making it through. I had a mother like that. I left home and went no contact when I was 17. It took me until I was 30 to make that stick. The longing for a loving parent is strong. Between those years, I let my mother back in 3 to 4 times. I couldn't give up on her. The first time, it took about 3 months for me to shut her out again. The last time, it took about an hour. As I got healthier mentally, it was easier to see the inappropriate behavior and shut it down. My mother had some epic meltdowns. So you aren't finished yet. Be vigilant. Be supportive. Don't expect perfection from your wife. She will falter, but expect her to handle things better each time. She will get there. And tell your wife a week is impressive. She snapped out of it faster than most. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my home after she told me it was karma that I can't have kids? I, female 32, have been trying to get pregnant for 7 years now and have been unsuccessful. Diagnosed with PCOS later in life, I've had 5 miscarriages that have taken a massive toll on my physical and mental health. It has left me feeling like a massive failure as my partner, male 36, desperately wants children, and I'm unable to give him this. He never makes me feel badly about it, but I know he's upset. His parents are in ill health, and they want grandchildren more than anything. Recently, I had a massive argument with my sister, female 34, after my last miscarriage. I was upset and asking her why this kept happening to me. She shrugged and said it was probably to do with the abortion I had when I was 19. Honestly, I was gobsmacked at how nonchalant she sounded. She knew there had been health reasons behind it, and had been supportive at the time. My health has been so poor that I needed an operation and had spent months recovering. Also, she knows how guilty I felt that I was unable to carry it to full term. I asked her what she had meant. And she said that our decisions always come back to haunt us, and that I needed to understand that I'd brought it on myself. That some people just weren't meant to have children, and it was God's way of telling us to stop. She wasn't being mean, just blunt, but my hormones were all over the place, and I ended up kicking her out of my house and telling her not to contact me again. Soon after, I got loads of phone calls from my other sister, mom and dad, and even my sister's husband, basically saying I had overreacted and was being a a-hole, that I had to make things right and apologized. I refused and haven't spoken to any of them since. My partner doesn't want her back in our house anytime soon after what she said. Am I the a-hole for agreeing with him over my family? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You don't ever say something like that to someone. If she wasn't on the lease or paying rent at all, you have every right to kick her out. She's an adult. She can figure out her own living situation without having to room with people she thinks so lowly of. By the way, I'm so sorry you're having difficulties. I wish you all the best in the future for a large, happy family. If she wasn't on the lease or paying rent at all, you have every right to kick her out. That's the thing. I don't think the sister was even living with Opie at all. The vibe I got from this is that she was merely visiting, especially because sister's husband was also mentioned. All this hullabaloo from the family over making her leave a house she was visiting. I couldn't tell if it meant a roommate or guest situation and didn't want to assume, but her not being on a lease covers both bases. Person on the lease can kick out whoever they want if she's just a guest. Either way, she is a massive and manipulative a-hole who probably told a way different story to the family to act like she didn't say something completely atrocious to warrant getting the boot in the first place. Not an a-hole times 1,000. She's evil and completely lacking empathy towards you. Don't apologize. Don't take anything back and keep her out and anyone who takes her side. Our decisions always come back to haunt us, and that I needed to understand that I'd brought it on myself. That some people just weren't meant to have children. I think Opie needs to tell her family that our decisions always come back to haunt us, and that sister needs to understand that she's brought this on herself. Some people just weren't meant to be allowed in Opie's house. OMG, this is absolutely perfect. What kind of deranged monster is the sister? And she has a damn cheek to bring God into it too, which tells me she is one of those pseudo-Christian a-holes. Well, she may not be allowed to back in Opie's house, but I'm sure she will be welcomed to hell with open arms. Not an a-hole. A miscarriage is not something you should try and guilt a woman about. That's messed up. She was out of line. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not helping my brother get his kids into the same school as my son? My brother, 34 male, and I, 29 female, are not close. We see each other once or twice a year at most, despite living 30 minutes from each other. We both have kids the same age. My older son is the same age as his daughter. So back when my husband and I had our oldest, we talked about where we wanted him to go to school. Option A was the school we were zoned to at the time and it was okay, but with plenty of people who hated it. Option B was not super popular at the time. It was seen as a less than perfect choice by most for being less bothered with grades, according to several reviews. But for us, it was perfect. They had great teacher reviews from parents of kids going there. Kids adored it, and their policies were ones we really liked. So we made the choice to move to get into the zone for School B. Once our son started school, we had no regrets. Back then, my brother thought we were dumb and talked crap about the school choices. I remember seeing him that Christmas and him saying it was lazy parenting to not consider grades over everything else. Right now, he is eating his words, and is the most we've talked in probably 20 years if I'm being honest. He reached out back in January to say how his kids hated school, and how he and his wife were having a hard time with teachers and things like that. He mentioned trying to get the kids into the same school my son was going to. There was a layer of aggression in everything. Like, screw you for having it better. He started texting and telling me this stuff a lot. And then in April, he told me that he got rejected because of the district, and he ranted a bit about how much we sucked, etc., to the point where I hung up on him. It was after that point he asked me if he could use my address to enroll the kids there. I told him I would need to think about it. My husband and I discussed it, and we said no. Our reasons were neither of us wanted to deal with seeing and hearing more from him. Because while everything is emailed, we also get regular snail mail for certain things too throughout the year, and that would require more contact than neither of us wanted with him. I told him it wouldn't work for us, and when he asked why, I told him we have never been good, and we don't need to keep the conflict up by staying in touch more. My brother is pissed and has been pissed for months. I had to block him on WhatsApp, where he was texting and calling me, and I ended up leaving our family group chats because he was airing his stuff there. He called me an a-hole, said I was selfish, that I should put the kids first. And at first, everyone was more on my side, but now others seem to think it wouldn't hurt and that putting the kids first should be the priority of a non-a-hole. So now I ask, am I the a-hole? Not an a-hole. Depending where you are, it's a crime to say you live at a place so you can enroll your kids in a better school. Even if it was legal, you don't owe him anything. Opie, not only it is illegal, but your kid is registered in that school at that address. It seems pretty inevitable that the school will eventually put two and two together, and then you'll be open to possible prosecution. Possibly your kid being kicked out of the school. That's what I'd tell him and family. Not the a-hole. I was thinking this as I wrote my comment above. Given the OP is a woman and her kids might have a different last name than her brother's kids, they would almost undoubtedly question why two sets of kids with different last names reside at the same address. Not the a-hole. It's true that kids should be primarily the concern for parents and family, but your brother and his condescending and horrible behavior is the roadblock here, not you and your decision to limit contact with him. Also, if this is public school in the US, this may be residency fraud. I don't know what penalties might be for parties involved, but it's a risk that you really shouldn't have to take. Your brother's kids have options besides making you commit fraud. He can find another school or he could move into another district. Could also be less of an a-hole and work on being a caring and supportive family member. There was a residency fraud case locally a while back, and the parents ended up on the hook for the cost of schooling. I can't remember the exact number, but it was thousands of dollars. Update. I, 29 female, spoke to my parents who ghosted me 5 years ago after my wedding and have now reached out. Original story. My husband, 30 male, used to be my boss. About 9 years ago, I started working as his assistant. We spent about 2.5 years ignoring our mutual attraction until we gave in. We then went to HR, who reassigned me, and the whole thing was strictly above board from the time we began dating. I got pregnant about a year later, and my husband and I decided to just get married. While we'd only really been dating for about 1.5 years, we knew each other completely, loved each other, lived together, and there was a baby on the way. We knew how it would look, but I had to leave the company anyway due to problems with my new boss, so we didn't anticipate this causing any issues, except with my parents. They, 62 male/57 female, have always been overprotective, so I knew they wouldn't like me dating my boss, and hadn't told them. But I had to tell them if I wanted them at my wedding. We decided to be mostly honest with them, about how it was strictly professional until it wasn't, how the second it got unprofessional we went to HR, how he had never taken advantage of me, but now we wanted to get married, and we wanted them there. We did not mention the baby because I felt that giving them that information in addition to the rest all at once would just break them. I was only about 4 months along when the wedding happened, so the bump was easily hidden by a flowy dress. The wedding itself went off without a hitch, and apart from my mother pulling me into the bathroom shortly before the ceremony to ask if I was sure about this, which I said I was, my parents seemed to take it well. The ceremony and reception were at 2 different venues, and we had to travel from one to the other, and my parents never arrived at the reception. I called them and got ignored, and then my brother called them and they told him that they were going home. I don't remember the exact reason they gave, but it amounted to them being tired and uncomfortable. I tried contacting them after the wedding, but found that I was blocked on everything except email, which I used to send them a long letter essentially saying that I'm an adult who made an adult choice, and I hope they can respect that. 5 years later, I have not heard from my parents since my wedding. My husband and I are not big in social media in general, but I recently posted something for our 5th anniversary in which I mentioned our 2 kids and 3rd on the way. Within a month of making this post, my parents left a voicemail saying they saw the post, and having had no idea that they had grandchildren previously, now want to meet them. I haven't responded, and there have been a few follow-ups since, then asking why I haven't. I don't know what to do, but my gut instinct is that 5 years is too long, and it's about the kids, not about them respecting my choices or relationship. However, I can't help but feel that I am being unfair, and my brother agrees, because I told them in my mail that if they could learn to respect my choice in my marriage eventually, then we could talk, and now I'm retroactively applying a time limit. Edit. Can't find a way to work this in organically, but my husband is not white. I am, as are my parents. I don't think this is a race thing or that my parents are racist, and neither does my husband. And we don't understand why they would want to meet our mixed-race children if they were, but this element is still gnawing at me. Should I reach out to them? If I did, how would we go about rebuilding the relationship? Now for the top advice before reading the update. How could you ever trust them not to just abandon your kids if they did something unauthorized? They've shown that they aren't willing to be loving. You can't trust people who don't know how to love. It's not even that they're not loving, but that their love is warped and conditional. It's based on whether Opie's actions aligned with her worldview, something I'm sure Opie was aware of as she lived with them for a number of years. Opie knew on some level that her parents wouldn't be happy or approve of her relationship. There was a lot of pretense built around that. It's like a rug that can't be pulled out from under you if they don't agree with what you're doing. That's not real love. That's control. You've buried a lead in your comments here. The piece of the missing puzzle is being named after your older sister who died before you were born. It sounds like you were a replacement child and they dumped you because you were no longer doing what they wanted. Especially with the added info of them talking a lot about your wedding day. They imagined your life a lot. It's honestly nothing to do with your husband being your boss in my opinion, and just to do with the fact it's not what they imagined for you. The fact they want to show up now that they realized there is another little girl apparently with the same name is a bit of a red flag. You were put in an impossible situation, born to replace a person that only existed for a brief period. She always did as she was told, she always loved your parents first, etc., etc. Be careful. Your parents aren't emotionally safe. This is all probably unconscious reaction to deep grief, mixed with whatever personality traits. Ghosting you for 5 years is messed up. They're basically saying they would have never spoken to you ever again were it not for your kids. Do you think you'll regret not reaching out? I would think it's 100% up to them to rebuild their relationship with you, and you decide if it's enough. I don't know if I would trust them with their children. They walked away from their daughter so easily. I can see them doing it to the kids as well if things don't go their way, and they're likely to be hurt. I think there is potential for regret with both options. If I don't reach out, then I'll always wonder what could have been. If I do reach out, then they could be amazing. Say and do all the right things, and my life will be better for it. But they could also be terrible to my family and an all-around harmful presence in our lives. And like you said, they could walk away from the kids. And if the kids grow to love them before they walk away, it'll break their heart to see them go. And now for the update. I asked to talk yesterday. We were on Zoom within an hour. It was my parents and me and my husband. They asked to see the kids, and I said they could see them eventually depending on them earning our trust and convincing us they were going to be positive additions to the kids' lives. They asked to start by reading me a letter that they claimed to have written on my wedding day. It said that they were uncomfortable with me marrying my former boss, as they thought he took advantage of me. So they left between the wedding and reception to avoid a scene, but they wanted me to know they were here for me despite their issues with him. They added that they would have sent this to me the morning after my wedding. Then I sent my email about them needing to respect my choices, and they were so ashamed they couldn't bring themselves to send theirs. See, my anniversary post made them realize how much they've missed in 5 years, and they really don't want to miss anymore. I had some questions, like what the big deal was with me marrying my former boss, and they said that it just wasn't what they had in mind for my wedding and my future spouse. I asked why they even came to the wedding at all if they didn't support the marriage, and my dad responded that he wanted to walk his daughter down the aisle, as it was the only chance he'd get. The way it was phrased implied that they had intentionally only come to the wedding so he could give me away. I'd always planned to leave halfway, and because he said my daughter and didn't talk to me directly, it was pretty clear he was thinking about my older sister who passed away. My husband caught that too, and said that if they were talking about me, they should address me directly. Then added that if they had planned to leave, they should have told us as we wouldn't have invited them. And the fact they waited 5 years to reach out was going to take more reasons than shame. Because as a father, he didn't understand how they could ignore their daughter for years, or only get back in touch when we had kids. My dad snapped that it wasn't going to take this from a cootie, a slur meaning dark-skinned. My mother immediately tried to run damage control, but I ended a call. They have since messaged me several times trying to explain that calling my husband a racial slur wasn't indicative of a racist attitude, and he wouldn't have said that in front of the kids, so they should still get to meet them. I've spent 5 years wondering how they were so offended by me marrying my boss, that it earned no contact for half a decade. Turns out they're just that kind of people. It's almost nice to find out. If it was just the boss thing, I would have sympathy for them and we might even be able to reconcile. But with this, it's now just a question of if I'm going to knowingly expose my mixed-race children to a couple of racists, which I'm obviously not going to do. Calling someone using a racial slur out of sudden anger most definitely means they have racist attitude. Sometimes we need to cut out people from our lives to protect who we are. This time you are doing that and protecting your family. They have shown who they are, and cutting them out can mean cutting out the toxicity. Yes, forgiveness is something we should all strive for, but sometimes we just don't need that negativity around us. Wish you the best. They are insisting they aren't, but even in our worst fights, my husband and I have never called each other slurs. And the only people who have ever called my husband slurs have been racist. What my husband was saying wasn't wrong either, or unfair. Half of it was things I had told him that I wanted to say to them, but had gotten too emotional to actually say it. I think I'm quite a forgiving person, but there is no forgiveness to be had here. If your parents said that they wouldn't say that slur in front of your kids, then they know it is wrong and shouldn't have said it at all. You have done the right thing. Yeah, we're racist, but we will hide it in front of the kids. You are people of color themselves. Get out of here. Good on you, Opie. Well, that closes that door once and for all. In a way, it must be a relief, ending the uncertainty. Hope can be more of a burden than giving up sometimes. Racist, and further evidence they were just using you as a dad-daughter version 2, and were planning your kids to be version 3. Now you can move on with your life, minus any guilt, and minus 2 millstones. It is. I've spent 5 years wondering what I did wrong, and why an HR problem was enough to lose my parents' love. Turns out there's nothing I could have done because it wasn't my fault, nor my husband's. It's now just a question of if I'm going to knowingly expose my mixed-race children to a couple of racists, which I'm obviously not going to do. Nothing more to be said, really. Other than why are they still able to message you? Give them one last warning that any further contact will be treated as harassment. Block, and follow through on protecting yourself and your family if they still refuse to accept that your word is final. We still have line of communication through emails, but I'm going to block that now. We're blocked on everything else. Though I am expecting them to unblock me and start messaging me there once emails are closed. And I'll block them on those other platforms too. Now for the last story. Update. My entire family despises my fiancé and I have to choose between them and her. Is she manipulating me and is there something I'm not seeing? Original story. I met my fiancé when I was at a very low point in my life. We instantly clicked and had a whirlwind romance. And I proposed after 3 months and we are now engaged. I feel like my family has never approved of her, or particularly liked her. They are all very educated and work professional jobs, while she's a college dropout who works as a hostess. She's starting a venture of her own, and I'm funding it for her. The problem started with my sister-in-law and my brother. They told me that 3 months was too quick, and that I should date her for longer. They also implied that she's a gold digger. They never used the term. They said this because she doesn't financially contribute. My fiancé isn't particularly fond of my sister-in-law, as sister-in-law is very rich and successful, and fiancé thinks that she is snobbish. The problem escalated when there was a family wedding and my fiancé wasn't invited. She is of a different race, so she accused my family of being racist, and said this to my parents' face. My parents never expressed an opinion about her, but that was their ticking point. My sister-in-law and brother added to this and told them about my financial contributions to her ventures and other details about her relationship. My parents said that I am making the wrong decision. I told my fiancé this, and she lashed out. She messaged my sister-in-law and told her that she's a horrible person for trying to wreck our relationship. My sister-in-law once again communicated this to my parents, and they have refused to pay for and attend the wedding. My fiancé says that her family will accept me with open arms, and that we can get married in City Hall. She accused my parents of being elitists, and said that they only like my sister-in-law because she's educated and of the same race. I love my fiancé, but I feel like she's trying to manipulate me into cutting all ties. I don't know what to do, and I don't want to reach a point of no return with my family. Any advice will be appreciated. And now for the top advice before reading the update. 3 months and you're funding a business startup for her? And engaged? Holy cow, that's fast track. What's the rush? Without knowing any other details, I'm on your parents' side with this one. 3 months is a blink of an eye. Her messaging your sister-in-law like that is a huge red flag as well. You haven't even met her family and she's asking you to cut yours off? dude. If I ever bring up the fast track part, she accuses me of having second thoughts. And I was pretty sure she was the one until now, so I let it go. She said that I cannot meet her family because of COVID. They live across the country, even though we are all vaccinated and have traveled. Now that I think of it, it is quite strange. If I ever bring up the fast track part, she accuses me of having second thoughts. Run. What do you expect if you engage with someone after 3 months? You just can't know her enough. Then you pay for everything and she wants to cut you off your family to control you better. If you really want to stay with this woman, you must make clear that you will wait with marriage at least till spring 2023 and that you want a prenup. Don't give in when she talks about trust and that you think that the relationship doesn't work out. That is guilt-tripping and manipulation. Take your time to learn everything about her in every situation. For a few months or a year, a person can fake a lot. The longer you are together, the more of her true self will come to light. And don't give her too much money, don't let her have access to your bank account. Okay, I'm able to see all the red flags as I'm typing these comments out, but she told me that getting your prenup is against her culture. I hadn't even brought it up. This was unsolicited. Bro, she may be your fiancé, but you're just her piggy bank. Solely judging off of what's in this post, end this relationship ASAP and make amends with your family. And now for the update. Well, we broke up. A lot of the comments echoed what my family was saying, but the outside perspective drilled it into my head. I have a good relationship with my parents, and my sister-in-law is actually one of my best friends. Just to clarify from the previous post, I've never thought they were racist or snobbish. It was an idea my ex was forcing into my head. The breakup was very messy. I told her that I thought we were going too fast and that it wasn't working out, and she began crying and implied that she would end herself. I could see the manipulation clearly for the first time, and I just told her that it is above my pay grade and that she should seek professional help for this. Now, for all the money I invested in her business, well, it was a mistake, and I'm just considering it a sunk cost. It did hurt my pockets, but recovering it will just tangle more webs. Thank you so much for all the advice. It helps me avoid a grave mistake. And I just told her that it is above my pay grade. Damn, son, that's savage, but I like it. You didn't just dodge a bullet here, mate. You dodged 30 years of marital tyranny. If the price of that lesson was a few grand in her bank, I'd say that was well worth it. In the future, take it slow and introduce your family to the new missus. You probably already know that, lol. Good luck, mate. And one last tip from Winston Churchill, don't stick your member in crazy. Yep, I had an ex try to pull that card on me when I was breaking up with her. And she knew full well I had lost my best friend to self-harm when I was younger. I wish I'd had the savage eloquence, but instead I just told her to immediately get the hell out of my house. When I caught my husband cheating and filed for divorce, he threatened to end himself. I told him to go right ahead. Please stay single for a while and maybe invest in therapy. Rushing into an engagement at 3 months while throwing down major fund was a severe lapse in judgment and self-respect. I think you need time by yourself to analyze why you let yourself get taken advantage of. I'm glad you're out, but wow. You paid a very hefty fine to learn a lesson. I highly suggest you seek personal therapy. I don't mean this to be offensive, but most people would have seen this as a really alarming behavior on both sides. You clearly got stuff to work through mentally. It's okay though. Good job on telling her that. Hopefully you blocked her. If you haven't, this is your reminder to do so now. Real talk though, imagine how hefty of a fine it would have been if they got married. $5 betting on her contacting you soon that she's pregnant with your kid. It will not be your kid even if pregnancy will be real. Am I the a-hole for lashing out at my husband for suggesting I stop buying formula instead of canceling his streaming services to save money? I'm female 32, the breadwinner, and have a toddler and a 9-month-old baby. Their needs are never ending, and everything I buy is expensive. My husband, male 37, is unemployed, but uses part of my salary for subscription/paid streaming services, which cost about $80+ a month for Hulu, Premium, Netflix, HBO, Amazon, ESPN+, and more. I keep finding myself coming up short with money. I kept neglecting buying hygiene products and have only one pair of shoes that look decent. I can't remember the last time I bought anything nice for myself. And keep feeling guilty just thinking of going shopping for stuff that is necessary. I sat him down for discussion and told him his subscriptions are taking money. I can't keep paying for them when I have other responsibilities. I asked him to choose one channel and he threw a fit, calling me ridiculous to think streaming services are the reason I'm always short on money, and blamed it on the expensive and unnecessary makeup. He calls it fake-up. I keep wasting money on. I got angry and said he needed to respect that makeup is part of my personality and won't quit buying it wearing it. He said that I was trying to financially control him since I got offended when he pointed out that I waste money in makeup, and explained that he cannot and will not be bought with money no matter how desperate he is. I said okay, then let me cancel all streaming services and keep one till he can pay for them once he finds a job. But he refused and said since he is the stay-at-home parent, then those streaming services are a right and not a privilege, and I should keep paying for them without complaining since he's staying with our sons all day, and it's taxing just like my job. Final straw was when he suggested I stop buying formula and go back to breastfeeding since that is unnecessary and expensive. I was floored and was seething and lashed out at him, asking him if he literally thought canceling formula is better than his precious subscriptions. Also, I work. I have no time to breastfeed. He just said he doesn't know what it is anymore and that I was pushing him, but I told him he no longer has a choice, and I'll just stop paying for all his channels/subscriptions altogether, which had him reply that I was being unfair and unappreciative of his efforts. He stormed off after calling me controlling and kept cold-shouldering me. Am I the a-hole? Edit. No, he left his previous job due to issues with his employer. He struggled with finding a job in his field and refused to work in other related fields, saying his dignity won't let him since he worked hard for his degree. My makeup gets replaced every few months. It's normally cost $50+, but that's every few months, not every month. I stopped breastfeeding for health issues and now work, but he never stopped criticizing my decision to use formula, calling it a waste of money when I could push past the pain and provide our son with real benefits. I still do the majority of work around the apartment. What efforts? He's contributing nothing financially. You are not the a-hole, and you can spend your hard-earned dollars however you like. I'm not sure since I still do the cooking/cleaning/washing after I get home, but he says that's my part of chores, so I shouldn't complain. Sounds like he's not even a stay-at-home parent then, just an over-glorified babysitter for the kids. As a former live-in babysitter, I did all the day cleaning, taking care of a baby, a toddler and a preteen, cleaned up after 2 puppies, 5 days a week, until either my brother-in-law, older half-sister got home, and my cousin or her mom picked up my nephew-cousin. This is an insult to babysitters. Was a live-in nanny too. Did all of that and had loads of free time because I approached it like a job, not like something that was getting in the way of my streaming. Opie's husband is a mooch. Opie needs to go on a chore strike and stop paying for all but one of his subscriptions. Hell, only paying $100 for 3 years of VPN would get him a lot of that stuff for free if he knew what services to use. Chore strike? Most people like this never change. At most, they might pretend to for a few days or weeks, then they're back at it. They have core character flaws, and you need to really want to change them, and even then it's hella hard. More so when the flaws involve selfishness, entitlement, and a heaping dose of misogyny. Opie needs to quietly and quickly move her money into new accounts in her name only, assuming they have any joint ones. Cancel any joint credit cards and get her payment information removed from his streaming accounts. Then she needs to kick his sorry butt to the curb. Info, why can't he get a job again? I don't see how you're financially controlling him if it's his choice to be unemployed. Edit, not today, Hall, in case it wasn't clear. He's refusing to work any other job outside of his profession, and that is hard to find here. So I'd rather watch you struggle and make entirely unhelpful suggestions about the budget instead of getting any job to help support his family? Is his dignity more important to him than his children? He needs a lesson to humility ASAP. Next story. Am I the a-hole for going off on my sister-in-law after she insisted on taking my husband with her as her +1 to her friend's wedding? We lost my brother-in-law, 34, my brother's twin brother, 2 years ago in a serious car accident. He was a good person with a good heart, and losing him was devastating, especially on my sister-in-law, his wife. We all offered different types of help to my sister-in-law, and my husband has been the most supportive in the family by stepping up and helping out with transportation, childcare, money, food, doctor appointments, kids' matters at school, etc. My sister-in-law has been vocal about her needs lately. And I noticed she's been asking my husband to do too many things for her that she, in my opinion, can do herself, like fixing the door handle or getting the food for the dog. My in-laws noticed how she constantly keeps calling his number, yet ignore all of us and turn down any offers to help her weather the house or kids. It was irritating, not gonna lie. I told my husband that he kept saying he wants to help out his brother's family and finds himself guilty when he ignores her phone calls, though he's very busy with our kids and work. This biggest fight was days ago when I was at my in-laws and my sister-in-law talked about receiving an invite to her friend's wedding, but was required to bring a +1. She flat out told me to tell my husband to be available on X day to go with her to the wedding as her +1. We were all shocked. I looked at her and asked if she was serious. She ranted about not finding anyone close available, and also not feeling comfortable asking her husband's friends to accompany her. I said sorry, but my husband was busy. The next thing she did was ignore me and pull her phone out to call him. I stopped her and told her very firmly and loudly that she needed to knock it off because my husband isn't hers, and she needed to just stop acting like it. She looked at me shocked and said a lot of stuff I can't remember, but accused me of not wanting her husband's brother, who's her kid's uncle, to help her out. It also accused me of discouraging him from spending time with the family and his nephews. She went on calling me petty for feeling jealous and resentment towards a struggling widow, and said she needed to go to the wedding to have fun after 2 years of being depressed and unable to go out. I argued with her, then left. My mother-in-law called saying she understood my frustration and agreed sister-in-law had no right, but I also had no right to say what I said, and basically rubbing the fact unlike her I still have my husband with me in her face. She wanted me to apologize, but I refused and explained how my sister-in-law was behaving all those months. But everyone keeps saying I should be graceful and sympathetic as my sister-in-law is trying to adapt to her new normal. My husband said I should talk to her from one woman to another. Not a home. Your husband can be sympathetic to his brother's family, but not at the expense of his own family. And honestly, he might be doing more harm than good by doing everything for her. Getting dog food? No doubt, life is hard for her. But it's been 2 years, and at some point, she'll need to figure out how to live for herself and her children. Also, no weddings require a +1. If she'll only call Opie's husband and ignores the rest of the family, then he needs to be delegating some of these chores to others. I'm side-eyeing him a bit in this too. I can get how overpowering that guilt might be. His brother is gone and left a widow and children. It's very normal if Opie's husband feels like he needs to step up at first, and the time frame just kept getting longer. It can feel like an a-hole move to prioritize your own needs when someone close to you is in such a bad predicament. I'm going to guess that your husband and his brother look alike, and so she's creating an attachment to him based on her loss. That really sucks. But you are totally within your rights to put your foot down to her demands. Plus, why is she required to have a guest at the wedding? Is that a thing? Definitely this. My ex-boyfriend had an identical twin brother. When my ex broke up with me, I was devastated, and then went on to sleep with this identical twin brother because I thought it would fix my heartbreak. It didn't, and in hindsight, I am disgusted by myself and what I did. But I definitely recognized the sister-in-law's behavior. Opie not the a-hole. She is using her husband as her de facto husband. The nerve of her telling you to tell your husband to be ready to accompany her to a wedding. Nah, chick, not going to happen. And I have never ever seen a wedding invite that requires you to bring a +1. It's always optional. The friend is tone deaf sending her widowed friend an invite with a +1 when they apparently know she isn't seeing anyone. Or does the whole damn world think your husband is hers now? This is not healthy. Helping is one thing, but this is something else entirely. Next time she calls your husband to fix a door handle, the appropriate response is, I'm not available. The handyman we use is John Acme. I'll text you his info. Bye. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not changing my baby's name? My husband and I are expecting our first baby and we're due in just a few weeks. When we first announced our pregnancy to our family after the first trimester, 20+ weeks ago, we also announced our baby's gender and his name. My sister and her husband has been trying to conceive their third kid for the last 5-ish years. However, due to some complications in her previous pregnancy, they have had to do several rounds of IVF. Turns out, she found out she was pregnant 5 weeks after me and announced her pregnancy a little over a month after us. She found out she is also expecting a baby boy, and we were both excited about the idea of our kids growing up to be best friends. Everything was going pretty great until a few weeks ago. My mom decided to come to visit me to help me get the nursery ready and mentioned that my sister had really liked the name my husband and I picked for our baby and that she had decided to take it. My mom then asked me what my husband and I would change our baby's name to, since it would be too confusing to have 2 grandkids with the same name. I told my mom that we were not changing the name of our baby, since our hearts were set on it, and we wouldn't have announced it if we weren't sure. I then got a call from my sister claiming that since this was their miracle baby, she would get first dibs on whatever name they wanted. I told her that she can name her baby whatever she wants, but that we're not changing our minds about our baby's name. Am I the a-hole for not being willing to change my baby's name? Not the a-hole. Your sister is acting like the world revolves around her. I bet she's going to throw a meltdown if your kid is cuter. If you have a baby shower, she will be mad because how dare you have a baby shower and take all the attention off her and her miracle baby. Or you'll be gifted some items she really wanted at your own baby shower, and she will take it from you as she has dibs. Best to go low contact if talking to her doesn't work. This is so on point. We had our baby shower a couple of weeks ago, and my sister was trying to talk my mom out of throwing me a shower because this is not her first grandchild. So basically, since my sister already gave my mom 2 grandchildren, I'm not allowed to celebrate my first child. My mom didn't listen, and the shower was awesome, but my sister complained the entire time. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. As painful as it may be to go low contact, you may need to protect your baby boy. Your sister is displaying such pettiness. She may pin her son against your son to prove her son is better than yours. Also, baby showers help new moms with the gifts for the baby. So she was willing to take away items for her nephew, ruin your experience as a first-time mom, create drama, and didn't want to celebrate your son's birth. Does your sister get another baby shower? With her logic, she shouldn't. My uncle's ex did this with me and my cousin. We're not quite a year apart. He and I are great now, but back then, everything was a fight she started. She pits us against each other repeatedly, when we so very clearly wanted to be friends. I'm glad it ended okay for y'all. I'm afraid it'll turn the other boy into bullying Opie's kid. Go on, take the toy. You were the miracle baby. You announced the pregnancy and the baby name. 5 weeks later, your sister got pregnant through IVF and decided to try to name her baby the same thing. That's not only creepy, but envious. You can't just take someone else's baby name like that. She's free to name her child the same thing, but there will be consequences to that, I'm sure. In the form of, isn't your sister's kid named the same? And didn't that kid come out first? People can do the math here. They're not stupid. Just stand your ground on the name, tell her she's free to name her child whatever she wishes. The situation will resolve itself. Once the OP has the baby, it officially names him the chosen name. I predict the sister will not use it. She's way too selfish to have her baby boy be number 2 at anything, especially her sister's son. I do unfortunately see years of petty comparisons. It's sad that OP's sister can't be happy for both of them. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to wake up early to make my boyfriend's kids breakfast? I, 26 female, have recently moved in with my boyfriend, 37 male. He's the breadwinner while I'm currently unemployed, but in the process of looking for a job. He has 2 school-age kids, and they're the best. We almost don't argue at all except lately where he's been expecting me to wake up early every day to get the kids ready for school and make them breakfast. The complicated ones, since the kids are super picky eaters. I was confused since he used to handle this part. I ask why, what changed now, and whether he actually believes in gender stereotypes because it's ridiculous to expect me to prepare complicated breakfast every day because I'm a woman. He said I was wrong with my assumption, but figured since I'm unemployed, then this is the least I could to help him out. It'd make the kids breakfast and get them ready for school while he focuses on work and earn a living since he's the breadwinner. I corrected him saying I'm not a stay-at-home mom. I'm just temporarily out of job and plan to find one. I asked what he's going to do if I start working. Is he going to expect me to get the kids ready and make them breakfast still? He said since I'm not working right now, then needed to pick up the slack. Then we'll talk once I find a job and start working. He advised me to regulate my sleep schedule and stop staying up all night to be able to wake up early in the morning, which was offensive of him to say because it came off as controlling. But I told him I refused to do what he's telling me, and he ended up calling me lazy and irresponsible. Also claimed I'm an opportunist, constantly making excuses to get out of doing chores even though I cook and clean. I think he wants me to play stay-at-home mom, although I said I'm not when the kids are mainly his responsibility as a parent. Am I the a-hole, or is he? Added to add, I do help with the kids from cleaning to cooking for them and also teaching them in the kitchen. However, the morning routine has always been handled by their father. In the past, he wouldn't even let me intervene in their homework. And yes, I did all that while also working a job. Now he's calling me lazy regularly in front of his family. You can only imagine how awful that makes me feel, and like I'm not doing enough. Info, I'm wondering about rent/mortgage/utilities. OP, how much do you currently contribute financially to the household? If not that much, I feel like making a non-financial contribution seems reasonable. If you don't like making breakfast, what other offers have you made? Answer, $0. I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, I see what he's saying too. You live in his house. He's working all the time right now and you're not. I don't see what the big deal is with making his kids some breakfast. What do you do all day/night? If they're super picky, then tell him to buy foods that they like to make it easier on you. You're the a-hole. Also, I'm not judging on his delivery because something is telling me you're just saying it how you like. This. I have to agree that you guys have a communication problem, but he does have a point. Yeah, definitely a communication problem, but like, come on. I'm not gonna have someone move into my house and be unemployed doing nothing all day while I'm working. Plus, dating a man with kids? Do you expect to just never have to be part of the kids' lives and help out with them?